Psalm 120 has become more than just a comforting passage for me. It's been a lifeline, a real and raw reminder of what it feels like to struggle in the midst of chaos. While Psalm 91 is often considered the great psalm of protection, Psalm 120 hits different because it doesn't come from a place of victory. It doesn't start with someone standing tall on a mountaintop, basking in triumph. Instead, it begins in the valley, in the midst of real pain, and speaks directly to the heart of someone who's facing overwhelming distress. It's not a polished, perfectly worded prayer, but a desperate, honest cry from someone surrounded by deceit, caught in the middle of conflict, and feeling the weight of the world pressing down. It's the kind of cry that says, "I'm not okay, but I'm still holding on to one unshakable truth. In my distress, I called to the Lord, and He answered me." That simple but powerful verse has been a constant source of comfort and strength for me, especially in moments when life felt like it was crumbling around me. I remember a time when nothing seemed right. People I trusted betrayed me, words were twisted, and I felt like I was carrying an unbearable weight of responsibility that drained me emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Even prayer felt like a distant, unreachable act. I remember sitting in a quiet room one night, not knowing what to say, feeling completely exhausted. The only words I could find were, "Lord, help me," and that was enough. Even though everything around me hadn't been fixed in that instant, I felt a shift. The tension in my chest eased, the noise in my mind started to quiet, and in the silence, I heard a still, quiet whisper, "I heard you." In that moment, it became crystal clear. God doesn't need me to have everything figured out. He doesn't need me to put together the perfect prayer or speak in eloquent language. He just needs me to be real. He needs my honesty, my rawness. And that's what Psalm 120 is all about. A person, broken and in distress, choosing to call out to God instead of letting life's pressures crush them. It's the realization that prayer isn't about performing or saying the right words. It's about reaching out in the middle of the mess and finding the strength to keep going, trusting that even in the darkest moments, God is listening. It's funny how we often feel like we need to have everything figured out before we can talk to God. We think we need the perfect words, the right setting, or that everything in our lives needs to be in order before we can approach Him. But the truth is, God isn't waiting for us to be flawless. He's waiting for us to be honest. When I read Psalm 120, I picture the psalmist as someone who isn't putting on a show. This isn't a prayer from someone who's got it all together. It's a cry from someone who's barely holding it together. It's the kind of prayer that doesn't ask for everything to be fixed right away, but simply asks for God to show up. And let's be real, sometimes that's all we can muster. We don't need to be religious or spiritual superheroes. All we need is to be real. I've been there. When life feels so heavy that even saying the words, "God help me," seems like the best we can do. And that's the beauty of Psalm 120. It shows us that prayer isn't about checking off boxes or following a formula. Prayer is about reaching out, calling to God in the mess, in the hurt, in the confusion, and trusting that He hears us. Because honestly, sometimes the hardest part of life isn't the storm itself. It's the feeling that you're alone in it. But Psalm 120 reminds us that even when everything feels upside down, even when we don't have the words, even when it seems like heaven is silent, God is still listening. It might not look like He's fixing everything immediately, But that doesn't mean he's absent. It means he's at work in ways we can't always see, setting things into motion even when we're still waiting for answers. And that's where hope lives, not in the promise of instant solutions, but in the assurance that God is at work, even in the silence. I think a lot of people get stuck in that place where they're praying and waiting for a quick fix. They think that because they've called out to God, everything should be immediately resolved. But here's the truth. Sometimes God's response isn't the instant solution we want, but a peace that comes in the middle of the chaos. I learned that the hard way. There was a time in my life when I felt completely overwhelmed, like I was sinking under the weight of everything. I prayed, but I didn't get the miraculous instant change I was hoping for. I prayed for relief from the pain, for a quick resolution to my problems, but instead I felt this quiet peace settle in, like the storm around me was still raging. But I wasn't as rattled anymore. That's when it hit me. God's response isn't always about fixing things right away. Sometimes his response is to offer peace in the midst of the storm. That's what Psalm 120 is talking about. The psalmist doesn't get an immediate solution to his problems, but he does get the reassurance that God heard him. The distress doesn't go away in an instant, but the weight of it lifts, and that's where the real change begins. When God answers us, it's not just to give us what we think we need. It's to give us what we truly need. His presence, his peace, his reassurance that we are not forgotten. And sometimes that's enough. I think the hardest part of going through tough times is the waiting. We wait for the breakthrough, the miracle, the sign that everything is going to be okay. But often, we miss the fact that God is already answering us in ways that are more profound than what we were asking for. Maybe you're in that place right now. Maybe you've been praying for a change in your circumstances, and it feels like nothing is happening. But trust me when I say this, God is working behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. His silence doesn't mean he's absent. It just means he's doing something deeper in you than you expected. Sometimes we expect God to answer our prayers the way we envision it, but his answers often come in forms we don't recognize at first. We want the big, dramatic miracle, the instant fix, but sometimes God's answers come as small, quiet shifts inside us. I've been there, waiting for the big breakthrough, the doors to open wide, the problems to be solved in a moment. But more often than not, God's answer has been a gradual change in my perspective, a quiet shift in my heart, or a deep peace that settles in, even before my circumstances change. That's what Psalm 120 teaches us. It's not just about the moment of distress, but about what happens after the cry for help. The psalmist starts in a place of pain, but by the end, there's a shift. Even though everything around him may not have changed immediately, he finds comfort in knowing that God hears him. And that's the foundation for everything else. The real victory isn't in seeing the solution right away. It's in knowing that the God of the universe is listening, that he's present in your pain, and that he's working things out even when you can't see it. I think sometimes we miss the miracle because we're focused on the wrong thing. We want the fix. We want everything to be perfect right now. But what we really need is God's presence in the middle of it all. That's what changes us. That's what shifts everything. And when you know that God hears you, when you truly believe that he is present with you in the mess, you start to see everything differently. You may not have all the answers, and your circumstances may not have magically changed, but you have something far more valuable: His peace, His assurance, and His presence. That's the kind of answer that changes your life in ways the world can't understand. It's so easy to get caught up in the idea that God only moves when things are perfect or when we've reached some kind of spiritual high. We think that if we're not in the right headspace or if our lives aren't neat and tidy, God won't hear us. But that's not how it works. God doesn't wait for us to be put together before He answers us. The power of prayer is not about how eloquent we are or how spiritual we sound. It's about being real with God, no matter where we are or what's going on in our lives. Psalm 120 is proof of that. The psalmist doesn't have it all figured out. He's not reciting some perfect theological prayer. He's just being honest. He's in distress, surrounded by deceit and conflict, and all he can say is, "Lord, help me." That's it. And that simple, raw prayer is enough. I think so often we complicate things when it comes to prayer. We think we need the right words, the right attitude, or the right circumstances. But in reality, God just wants us to come as we are. He doesn't need us to have everything figured out before we talk to Him. In fact, He's waiting for us to come just as we are. Broken, tired, confused, frustrated, or whatever else we're feeling in that moment. When we approach Him with honesty, He meets us there. There's a kind of power in that. A raw, unpolished, vulnerable kind of power that comes when we lay everything out before Him and say, "I don't know what to do, but I know who to call." That's where deliverance begins, when we stop pretending and start trusting that God will meet us in our mess. He's not waiting for us to be perfect. He's waiting for us to be real. What's wild is that, as simple as it sounds, this is where transformation happens. It's not in the perfected, rehearsed prayers or the moments when everything's going smoothly. Transformation begins when we're desperate enough to be real with God, when we're tired and everything's fine, and we finally let go of the need to have it all together. Psalm 120 shows us that it's not about the conditions of our lives, but the condition of our hearts. The psalmist doesn't try to clean himself up or present a polished version of his struggles. He doesn't hide behind religious phrases or try to make himself sound more holy than he feels. No, he's just honest. And that honesty is what makes the prayer powerful. In those moments of raw honesty, God doesn't just hear our words, He hears our hearts. He understands our pain, our doubts, our confusion. And that's where true healing begins. The breakthrough doesn't always come in the form of an immediate solution to our problems. Sometimes it comes as a quiet reassurance, a sense that we're not alone, that God is with us in our distress, working things out in ways we can't even begin to understand. It's like when you're going through something tough and you don't have the answers, but someone simply sitting with you, offering quiet support, is enough to get you through. That's the power of God's presence. He doesn't need to fix everything right away. He just needs us to know that He's there, and that's enough to keep going. I've had moments like that, when everything felt off and I was overwhelmed. But in the middle of it, I felt His peace. That peace didn't make the situation perfect, but it made me realize that I didn't have to carry it all by myself. The thing that really blows my mind is that even when we don't see immediate results, God is always working behind the scenes. It's like we're sitting in the waiting room, praying for answers, and all we see is silence. But what's happening in that silence is where the real work is being done. We tend to think that if we don't get an answer right away, God isn't paying attention or isn't doing anything. But that's just not true. Psalm 120 reminds us that even in our distress, God is actively listening. He hears every word, every sigh, every cry. His silence doesn't mean he's absent. It means he's preparing something bigger than we can imagine. Sometimes the waiting season is about developing our trust, our patience, and our faith in God's timing. When we don't see the immediate changes we expect, it can be easy to think that God's not answering. But I've learned that some of the most powerful answers to prayer happen in the spaces where we're waiting, wondering, and still trusting. It's in those moments when God is doing the deep work within us, shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for what's to come. I've had plenty of times when I felt like God wasn't answering my prayers, but looking back, I can see that He was working in ways I didn't expect. He was changing my heart, shifting my perspective, and laying the groundwork for what was about to happen. So, if you're in a season where it feels like nothing's moving, remember this: God is still moving. He's doing something behind the scenes, even when you don't see it. Your prayer doesn't fall on deaf ears. He's orchestrating things, setting up divine appointments, aligning circumstances, and moving mountains that you can't even see yet. Sometimes, it takes a little while for the physical world to catch up to what God is doing spiritually. One of the most powerful realizations I've had through all this is that God's timing is so different from ours. We want things to happen quickly. We want the answers, the breakthrough, the change right now. But God doesn't operate on our timeline. He sees the bigger picture. He knows what we need and when we need it, even when we're in the middle of the mess and can't see past our immediate struggles. I think we often forget that God isn't bound by time the way we are. He's not working on our watch. He doesn't rush things because He knows exactly how long it takes to prepare us for the next season. That's what I've come to understand about waiting. It's not just about waiting for God to fix our problems. It's about waiting for God to get us ready for what's ahead. I used to think that unanswered prayers meant God was ignoring me. But now I realize that it's in those moments of waiting that I'm actually being prepared for something bigger, something greater than what I could have imagined. Psalm 120 shows us that the psalmist didn't get an instant fix, but what he did get was the assurance that God heard him. And that's what we need most in times of distress. Assurance. When you know that God is hearing you, even in the silence, it changes everything. You can rest in the fact that He's not ignoring you. He's simply preparing you for something more. Maybe you're waiting for the breakthrough, the change, the answer to your prayers, and it feels like it's taking forever. But let me tell you something. God's delays are not denials. They're preparations. He's aligning things in ways you can't see yet, working behind the scenes to get everything just right. And when the time is right, the doors will open, the answers will come, and you'll see that the waiting was worth it. What's wild about this process is that even though we may not see the end result right away, something happens in us while we're waiting. It's easy to get discouraged during these periods because we're so focused on the outcome. We want things fixed, answers given, and clarity provided now. But what we often miss is that the real work is happening inside of us. In those moments of quiet waiting, God is shaping our character, strengthening our faith, and preparing us to handle the blessings that are on the way. Psalm 120 is a reminder that our distress and waiting aren't wasted. Even in the pain, there's purpose. Even in the uncertainty, there's growth. It's like being in a gym. At the time, the workout feels grueling, but the strength you're building is exactly what you need for the next challenge. Sometimes when we're in the middle of tough situations, it feels like we're just surviving. But in reality, we're being refined, we're being stretched, and we're being readied for something greater. The psalmist knew this. He started in distress, but through the prayer, through the calling out to God, he found deliverance not just from his circumstances, but from his own doubts, fears, and weaknesses. God doesn't just want to answer our prayers, he wants to transform us in the process. He wants to make sure that when the breakthrough comes, we're strong enough to carry it, wise enough to appreciate it, and humble enough to give him the glory for it. So, if you're in the waiting, don't get discouraged. Know that God is working in you just as much as he's working around you. The best part about this process is that while we're waiting for the breakthrough, we're also becoming the person who can handle the breakthrough when it comes. What I've come to realize is that the waiting itself is part of the blessing. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. When you're in the thick of it, all you want is for everything to change right away. You're looking for the quick fix, the miracle that sweeps in and suddenly makes everything better. But the more I think about it, the more I see that the waiting period isn't just a time of frustration, it's a time of preparation. I've seen in my own life that it's during these waiting seasons that I've learned to trust God in deeper ways. When things are going well, it's easy to say you trust God. But when you're stuck, when you're praying for answers that seem to never come, that's when trust really gets tested. It's in the waiting that we learn to lean on God when we don't have all the answers. We stop relying on our own timing, our own efforts, and we start surrendering to his. Psalm 120 speaks directly to this process. It's the psalmist's cry for help in the middle of confusion. But it's also his trust that God is listening. He doesn't get all the answers right away, but he finds peace in the fact that God is there, that God is working even when he can't see it. And I found that the waiting teaches us something crucial, that we can trust God with the process, not just the outcome. When we learn to rest in his timing, we begin to experience a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. It's a peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, even when everything around us seems chaotic. The longer I walk with God, the more I understand that the waiting doesn't diminish the blessing. It makes us ready for it. The truth is, trusting God through the waiting process requires a kind of faith that doesn't come naturally to us. It's easy to trust when everything is going our way, when life feels smooth and predictable. But when things are uncertain, when the storm rages, and the answers seem far away, that's when our faith is really tested. It's in those moments that we're forced to decide. Do we trust God because of what he can give us? Or do we trust him because of who he is? Psalm 120 lays out this struggle perfectly. The psalmist begins in a place of distress, and you can feel the rawness of his emotions. Yet, in the midst of his pain, he makes a conscious decision to call out to God, to trust that God hears him, even though everything around him is falling apart. That decision to cry out in faith even when the circumstances don't change is a powerful one, and it's one that God honors. He doesn't need us to have all the answers, but he does need us to keep coming to him. to keep trusting in His goodness, even when we can't see the road ahead. This is where the real transformation happens. Our faith grows not in the times when everything is easy, but in the moments when we choose to trust God, even when it feels like we're in the dark. And over time, that kind of faith becomes something that anchors us. It doesn't guarantee that everything will be perfect, but it does give us a steady foundation to stand on when the winds of life blow strong. In fact, the more we practice trusting God through the waiting, the more we begin to see that He's trustworthy in ways we never imagined. The more we lean into Him, the more we experience His peace, His provision, and His faithfulness, even before the breakthrough comes. And that peace, my friends, is its own kind of miracle. What I've really come to understand over time is that the struggle in the waiting is not just about enduring the discomfort. It's about learning to trust God even when you don't see a clear path ahead. I'll be honest, trusting God in the waiting has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It's easy to say, I trust God, when everything is lining up perfectly, when things are moving the way you want them to. But trust becomes a different beast entirely when life feels like a puzzle with pieces scattered everywhere, and you can't find the edges, let alone figure out how it all fits together. Psalm 120 captures this perfectly. The psalmist is surrounded by deceit, conflict, and confusion. He is facing something he can't control, and it feels like everything is falling apart. Yet in the midst of all of that, he makes a decision to cry out to God. He doesn't pretend that everything is okay. He doesn't deny the pain, the distress, or the feeling of being lost. But in his cry, he places his trust in God. He chooses to believe that even though he doesn't have the answers, God hears him and God will answer. And this is where the power of trust comes in. Not when everything is perfect, but when we choose to lean on God, even when we don't understand what's happening. I've had my fair share of moments where I've felt completely overwhelmed and unsure of how things were going to work out. The waiting felt like an endless loop of unanswered prayers. But in those moments, I've learned something critical, that God is with me in the silence, that His timing is always better than mine, and that even though I can't see the full picture, He sees it all. When I started leaning into that, when I stopped trying to rush things and let go of my timeline, I found that peace. It didn't come with the answers I wanted, but it came with the assurance that God was in control. And that assurance that God is with me in the waiting is the kind of peace that makes everything else fade into the background. It's not about waiting for everything to line up perfectly. It's about trusting that God is working even when I can't see it. It's about understanding that, even in the quiet moments, even in the moments where I don't have the answers, God is doing something deeper inside of me. And the more I've trusted Him through the waiting, the more I've seen that He is faithful. His silence is not His absence. It's simply a different kind of work. And that's what keeps me going in the tough times, knowing that God is moving behind the scenes, even when I can't see the changes yet. One of the hardest lessons I've learned and continue to learn is that trust doesn't always look like what we expect it to. Trusting God isn't just about believing He will change our circumstances. It's about believing He will change us in the process. I used to think that trust meant a straight line from prayer to breakthrough. In my mind, I imagined that if I just prayed hard enough, the answer would come quickly, and the relief would be instantaneous. But trust isn't like that. Trust often involves walking through uncertainty, doubt, and even confusion without knowing when or how the end of the tunnel will appear. The journey itself becomes part of the answer. Psalm 120 illustrates this perfectly. The psalmist is calling out to God, not from a place of triumph, but from a place of utter distress. His life is in turmoil, and he's surrounded by deceit and conflict. And yet, even though nothing in his external circumstances has changed at that moment, he decides to trust. He doesn't get a quick fix or an immediate change in his situation. But in the act of crying out to God, he is engaging in a process of trust that transforms him, even while the outer circumstances remain unchanged. And that's where the real power of prayer lies. It's not just about God changing the situation, it's about God changing us as we wait. Trust, I've learned, isn't passive, it's active. It requires something from us. It means choosing to believe, not just in the outcome, but in the goodness and faithfulness of God, even when the road is long and unclear. I remember times when my prayers were nothing more than whispers. Sometimes just a simple, "Lord, I can't do this, please help." And in those moments, I felt vulnerable, like I was giving up control, admitting that I didn't have it all together. But what I didn't realize then was that in those moments of surrender, God was doing something deeper in me. Each time I chose to lean on Him instead of relying on my own strength, I was being stretched, I was being refined. And though it didn't feel like it at the time, I was becoming more like the person God needed me to be to handle what was coming next. And this is where trust transforms us. It teaches us to surrender control, to be vulnerable, to face our weaknesses. And in doing so, we open ourselves to God's healing, restoration, and guidance. It's like being in a forge, where the heat of the moment shapes and molds us into something stronger. I think that's why the waiting periods are so important. They're not just about us receiving the things we ask for, but about us becoming the kind of people who can steward those things well. God doesn't want to just give us blessings. He wants to prepare us to handle them in a way that honors Him. And as hard as the waiting can be, I've found that when I choose to trust God with the process, when I choose to let go of my timeline and my expectations, the waiting becomes a powerful time of growth. It's not wasted. It's not in vain. God is at work, even when I can't see it. And that's where my trust has to be. It has to be in His perfect timing, His perfect plan, and in the certainty that He is always working on my behalf, even in the silence. When I think back on all the seasons of waiting I've been through, I realize just how much those moments have shaped my faith. There were times I thought I was stuck, times when I felt like I was standing still while everything around me seemed to be moving forward. In those seasons, it felt like nothing was happening, like my prayers were bouncing off the ceiling and my efforts were in vain. But looking back now, I see that those seasons were the very ones that built the foundation for everything that came after. God wasn't ignoring me in those moments. He was preparing me. It's like being in the dark room of a photographer, where the image is slowly developing. And though you can't see the picture yet, it's coming into focus in ways that can't be rushed. God's work in our lives often doesn't follow our timeline because His timing is perfect, and He knows exactly what we need to go through in order to get to where He wants us. I've learned that the longer I wait, the more I learn to trust His process. And the more I trust His process, the more I begin to see His hand in every little detail, even in the moments when nothing seems to be moving forward. Psalm 120 is a powerful reminder of this. The psalmist's cry for help didn't immediately change his circumstances, but it did change his heart. He acknowledged his distress, he reached out to God, and in doing so, he made room for God to work in him, even while he was waiting for his external situation to shift. And that's where the true power of prayer lies. Not in the immediate solutions we think we need, but in the transformation that takes place in our hearts as we choose to trust God even when we can't see the end of the road. It's in those moments of waiting that God is doing a deeper work in us, refining us, strengthening us, and preparing us for the next season. And here's the thing, it's not just about the waiting. It's not about simply enduring until the breakthrough comes. It's about learning to walk with God in the waiting. It's about cultivating a relationship with Him that isn't just based on what He can do for us, but on who He is to us. And when we do that, when we focus on Him instead of our circumstances, we begin to see that the waiting itself isn't a curse. It's a gift. It's in the waiting that we learn to listen more closely, to trust more deeply, and to rely on God more fully. And what's wild is that when we stop looking for the answers and start focusing on the relationship, we realize that the waiting doesn't feel as heavy anymore. Sure, it's still difficult, and there are days when it feels like everything is moving at a snail's pace. But there's peace in knowing that God is with us every step of the way. And when you know that, when you can rest in His presence during the waiting, the whole experience transforms. It goes from being a frustrating season of inactivity to a powerful season of growth. We can look at the waiting not as a burden, but as a time when God is doing something incredible in us. Something that will serve us and others in ways we can't yet understand. And that's the beauty of it all. Even in the silence, God is working. Even when we can't see it, He's doing a deep work in our hearts, and the waiting becomes a sacred time of preparation. When I reflect on my own life, the seasons of waiting have been the ones that have shaped me most profoundly. I used to dread those moments, the waiting, the uncertainty, the feeling of being stuck in a holding pattern. There were times when I felt like I was putting in so much effort and yet not seeing any results. Like I was just treading water, praying for a breakthrough that seemed to never come. It felt like my prayers were falling into a void, my hopes dashed by the weight of waiting. But now, after everything I've walked through, I see that those moments of waiting weren't wasted at all. In fact, they were the times when God was doing His most significant work in me. The waiting isn't about doing nothing. It's about God preparing us, refining us, teaching us things we couldn't learn any other way. It's easy to think of waiting as wasted time, as a season we just have to endure until something better comes along. But in reality, it's in the waiting that we develop resilience, patience, and a deeper trust in God's timing. It's where we learn to depend on Him in ways that we never would have in the middle of our success or comfort. Psalm 120 speaks to this beautifully. The psalmist starts in a place of distress, feeling surrounded by deceit and conflict, unsure of what to do. He calls out to God, not knowing how things will change or when, but he trusts that God hears him. And this is crucial, because his cry wasn't a one-time event. It was a declaration of faith. In his waiting, he's not passively sitting around hoping for things to get better. He's actively choosing to trust, to believe that God is hearing him, even when nothing looks different on the outside. And that decision, that act of faith, is what allows God to move. Waiting doesn't just change our circumstances, it changes us. It strengthens our faith. It teaches us perseverance. It deepens our understanding of God's character. We begin to see that in the waiting, God isn't punishing us. He's preparing us. He's not silent because he's absent. He's silent because he's doing something far more profound than we can see. It's in these seasons that we learn what it means to fully surrender our timeline, our expectations, and our control over to God. And this is where the shift happens. When we stop looking at waiting as a burden and start seeing it as an opportunity to draw closer to God, to become more like Him, to grow in faith, and to trust Him more deeply than we ever have before. It's not easy, and there are days when the waiting feels unbearable, when we wonder if we've been forgotten or overlooked. But I've learned that these moments are the very ones that refine our character, teach us patience, and build a trust in God that can't be shaken by circumstances. And as we trust Him in the waiting, we begin to see His hand at work in ways we never expected. The beauty of it all is that while we're waiting for our circumstances to change, God is already changing us. He's already doing a work in our hearts, a work that will make us ready for the blessing that is coming. We may not see the results right away, but every day of waiting brings us closer to the moment when God will reveal the fruit of this season, fruit that we could only grow through patience, faith, and trust in His perfect timing. And that, my friends, is the power of the waiting season. It's not the end of the story, it's part of the process that leads us to our breakthrough. When I think about the waiting seasons in my life, I can't help but reflect on how those moments often felt like the hardest. There were times when I could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. Times when I was praying with all my heart, but didn't see anything change. It's easy to become disillusioned when your prayers seem unanswered, when the results don't line up with the expectations you've set. But as I've walked through these seasons, I've come to realize that God doesn't just work in the big moments of breakthrough. He's also working in the quiet, unremarkable moments, in the spaces where it feels like nothing is happening. The truth is, the waiting season is not an obstacle to what God wants to do in our lives. It's the process through which He prepares us for the blessings ahead. And this isn't something I understood right away. At first, I would get frustrated and impatient, wondering why God wasn't acting faster, why things weren't changing as quickly as I wanted them to. But what I've learned over time is that there's something incredibly sacred about those seasons. It's in those moments of quiet waiting, those moments when we feel like we're just holding on for dear life, that God is doing the deep inner work that we wouldn't be able to experience any other way. Psalm 120 speaks directly to this. The psalmist cries out from a place of distress, acknowledging the pain and the struggle. And yet, he doesn't let his circumstances dictate his response. In the midst of everything falling apart, he chooses to call out to God in faith, believing that God hears him, even when everything around him seems like it's in chaos. It's this decision to trust that God hears us, even when we don't see immediate answers, that marks the turning point. Because as I've learned, trust isn't just about believing that God will give us what we want when we want it. It's about believing that God is good, that He is faithful, and that He is working, even when we can't see it or feel it. And that's where the transformation happens. In the quiet moments of waiting, when we choose to trust God's timing, when we choose to believe that He is orchestrating something greater than we can imagine. The waiting seasons can feel like a wilderness, but they're also a place where God prepares us for the things we can't yet understand. Every delay, every unanswered prayer, and every moment of frustration can become part of God's divine plan to shape us, refine us, and prepare us for what's ahead. As hard as it is, the waiting teaches us patience. It teaches us to surrender our timelines and expectations. And most importantly, it teaches us to trust God, not just for what He can do for us, but for who He is. When we stop focusing solely on the outcome and start focusing on the relationship, on drawing closer to God, on relying on Him, on being present with Him in the process, everything changes. The waiting doesn't feel like a void anymore. It becomes a place where we grow, where we become more like the person God created us to be. I've learned that God isn't just preparing the blessing for us, He's preparing us for the blessing. And while I would never wish to go through these waiting seasons forever, I've come to appreciate the growth, the transformation, and the peace that comes from trusting God in the midst of them. Waiting isn't wasted time. It's sacred time, where God is refining us, strengthening our faith, and positioning us to receive the blessings He has prepared. And when that moment of breakthrough finally comes, we will know without a doubt that it was worth the wait, because it was through the waiting that we became the people who could truly appreciate and steward the blessings that God has in store. When I look back on the hardest seasons of my life, the ones that were marked by waiting, pain, and unanswered prayers, I realize just how much those moments shaped me. It's easy to view those times as setbacks, as periods where nothing was happening, where I felt stuck, and where every step forward seemed like it was met with 2 steps back. But in reality, those were some of the most important seasons of all. Those waiting times were never wasted. They were times of deep preparation, times where God was at work beneath the surface, shaping my heart, building my character, and deepening my faith in ways that wouldn't have been possible in moments of easy success. What I've learned over time is that waiting isn't about being passive. It's not about sitting around and hoping that something will change on its own. Waiting is an active process, a time of spiritual formation where we're given the opportunity to surrender our control, to let go of our timelines, and to trust God with the journey. And that, my friends, is a lot harder than it sounds. It requires vulnerability, it requires patience, it requires a willingness to endure the unknown, to sit in the discomfort of not having all the answers, and to choose to trust God even when it feels like everything is falling apart. Psalm 120 captures this perfectly. The psalmist doesn't pretend that everything is okay. He doesn't sugarcoat his distress. He acknowledges the difficulty of his situation, and in that moment, calls out to God for help. There's no performance. There's no attempt to impress God with his eloquence or his faith. It's just raw honesty. And in that honesty and that vulnerability, there's a connection with God that transcends circumstances. When we cry out to God from a place of honesty, from a place of real need, that's when God's transformative power begins to work in us. It's not in the moments when we've got it all together, when everything is going right. It's in the moments when we don't know how to fix it, when we're struggling to find our way, and we call out to Him in desperation. That's when God shows up. But here's the kicker. God doesn't always show up the way we expect. We pray for immediate relief. We pray for the doors to open quickly. But God's answers don't always come in the form we anticipate. Sometimes He answers by giving us peace in the waiting, by giving us strength to endure, by teaching us to rely on Him instead of our own abilities. And while that's not always the answer we want, it's the one we need. Because the truth is, the waiting period is often where the most significant transformation happens. It's where God refines us, teaches us patience, builds our trust, and prepares us for the future. I used to get frustrated when things didn't change fast enough. I wanted the breakthroughs, the answers, the relief now. But I've learned that God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't match up with my own. Waiting doesn't mean God is doing nothing. It means He's doing something deeper than I can see in the moment. It means He's working on me, even when I'm not getting the immediate results I expect. And I've seen it time and time again. The things I thought I needed most, immediate relief, fast answers, a quick fix, were not the things I needed to grow. What I needed was patience, trust, and a deeper relationship with God. And those things don't come without the waiting. They don't come without the times when I'm forced to trust in God's plan, even when I can't see it, even when I'm uncomfortable, even when I'm frustrated with the pace of things. The waiting teaches me to rely on God's timing and not my own. And it teaches me to let go of my need to control the outcome. In those moments of waiting, I'm learning that God's plan is always better than my plan. His timing is perfect, and the lessons I learn in the waiting season are the ones that prepare me for the blessings ahead. The beautiful thing about waiting on God is that it transforms us from the inside out. When we stop trying to rush things, when we stop trying to force the outcome, we allow God to work in us. We allow Him to remove the distractions, the impatience, and the desire for control, and we make space for Him to do what only He can do. Waiting isn't just about standing still. It's about standing firm in our faith, trusting that God knows what's best and believing that He's always at work, even in the times when we feel like we're not moving at all. Looking back, I can see that some of the most defining moments of my life have been in the seasons of waiting. And no, these weren't the glamorous breakthrough moments I had hoped for, or the moments where I could shout from the mountaintops about the miraculous answers to prayer. Instead, they were the quiet, sometimes painful, and often frustrating seasons when I was stuck in the middle of something I couldn't control. I can't tell you how many times I've prayed for answers that didn't come when I expected, or for doors to open that seemed to remain firmly shut. There were times when I felt like God had forgotten about me, like my prayers were just bouncing off the walls, unheard and unanswered. It was easy in those moments to believe that my waiting was wasted, that nothing was happening, and that I was just spinning my wheels, getting nowhere fast. But as I've come to understand, this couldn't be further from the truth. What I didn't see in those moments of frustration was that God was working beneath the surface, in places I couldn't yet understand. The waiting season is never wasted. Even though I couldn't see it, God was doing something in me. He was preparing me for something bigger, something greater than what I could imagine. And that's what makes the waiting so significant. It's in those spaces where we don't see the end result, where the promise is still hanging out of reach, that God is doing the most profound work in us. It's easy to think that the waiting is just a holding pattern, a time of inactivity while we wait for the breakthrough. But the truth is that the waiting is a season of becoming. Becoming who God needs us to be to handle what's coming next. It's in the waiting that we learn the patience, resilience, and endurance that we will need for the next phase of our journey. Psalm 120 is a powerful reminder that even when everything around us seems to be in turmoil, when the world feels like it's falling apart, God is listening. The psalmist begins his prayer in a place of distress, acknowledging the pain, the deceit, the turmoil, and the pressure he feels. But what's incredible is that he doesn't just complain or get stuck in the misery of the situation. He calls out to God. He reaches for God in the middle of his distress, trusting that God hears him, even though nothing has changed externally yet. And this is what the waiting season does. It teaches us to turn to God, not just when things are going well, but when we're in the thick of it. It teaches us to trust him even when our circumstances don't immediately change, when the breakthrough seems delayed, and when the answer feels like it's taking too long to arrive. Trusting God in the waiting is where our faith is truly tested. But it's also where it grows the most. It's where we begin to learn that our faith isn't about what God can do for us in the moment, but about who he is, even in the silence, even in the delay. God isn't a genie who grants wishes at our command. He's a loving Father who is shaping us, teaching us, and preparing us for what's ahead. And I'll be honest, that's not always easy to accept. We want things to move faster. We want the answers now. But I've learned that when I let go of my timeline and stop rushing the process, God begins to do something deeper in me than I ever expected. He works on my character. He works on my patience. He teaches me how to trust him when I can't see what's coming next. I've learned that God doesn't just give us blessings. He gives us the strength to receive those blessings in ways that will honor him. He doesn't just answer our prayers with a quick fix. He answers them with a process that prepares us for the weight of the breakthrough when it finally comes. And sometimes that process takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes trust. But it is always worth it. I know it's hard when you're in the waiting. It can feel like you're not moving forward, like nothing is changing, like you're stuck in the same place, battling the same battles day after day. But take heart, because God is doing something in you. He's working on your heart, shaping your faith, and building your character in ways that you can't see right now. It's like planting a seed in the ground. You can't see the roots growing underneath the surface, but you know something is happening. The growth is happening beneath the ground, in places you can't yet see. And eventually, when the time is right, that seed will sprout, and you'll see the fruit of all that hidden growth. The waiting is part of the process. It's not wasted time, it's sacred time. It's the time when God is working in you, preparing you for what's to come. And when that breakthrough finally arrives, you'll look back and see that the waiting was a gift that God used to shape you, to make you stronger, and to prepare you for the blessings that he has in store. As I reflect on all the seasons of waiting I've experienced, I've come to realize just how critical they've been in shaping my journey. When I was in the middle of them, I couldn't see the bigger picture. All I could feel was the frustration of waiting, the ache of unanswered prayers, and the disappointment of not seeing things move forward as I had hoped. I was focused on the outcome, fixated on the end result, and the silence I felt from God during those times made me question if he was even listening. It's easy to fall into that trap, the trap of thinking that waiting is just a painful pause before something good finally happens. But over time, I've come to understand that waiting is never an interruption of the plan. It's part of the plan itself. The waiting is not some inconvenient delay or frustrating pause. It's God's intentional time to prepare us for what's next. When we're in the midst of it, we can't always see how deeply God is working in us. But looking back, I can see that the waiting season was not a waste of time. In fact, it was the most important season of all. It's where God refined me, reshaped me, and taught me things that I would never have learned if I had gotten what I wanted when I wanted it. Psalm 120 speaks so profoundly to this. How the psalmist is in distress, facing deceit and conflict, and yet, in that moment, he cries out to God. His situation hasn't changed yet, but in his cry, something shifts. It's not the external circumstances that change immediately, it's the internal transformation that begins to happen. And this is what I've learned through my own waiting seasons. While we're focused on what needs to change around us, God is far more concerned with what needs to change within us. Waiting teaches us endurance, patience, and trust. It teaches us that we can rely on God even when we can't see the end goal, even when the answers seem far away. And trust me, that's a hard lesson to learn, especially in a world that thrives on instant gratification and quick fixes. We want everything to happen on our timetable, but God's timetable is so much bigger, so much more intricate, and so much more aligned with His purposes than we could ever imagine. It's not that He doesn't care about our desires or our frustrations. It's that He sees the bigger picture, and He knows exactly what we need and when we need it. The waiting period isn't about wasting time. It's about learning to trust in His sovereignty, learning that even when we don't have all the answers, God is still in control. I've found that when I let go of my need to control the timing, the outcome, and the process, I open myself up to a deeper experience with God. The waiting stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like a gift, a sacred space where I can focus on God, grow in my faith, and trust in His goodness. It's in the waiting that we can learn to fully depend on God. We realize that we don't have to have everything figured out. We don't need all the answers right away, and we don't have to rush through the process. Waiting, though difficult, becomes a time of quiet growth. It's like the roots of a tree, deepening and strengthening beneath the surface, unseen and yet essential. And even when it feels like we're standing still, we are still growing. God is still moving in us. And even though we may not always see the growth immediately, it's happening in ways we can't always understand. It's in the waiting that we learn to see things through God's eyes, to trust His plan, and to surrender to His timing. And it's in that surrender that we find peace. True peace, the kind that doesn't depend on our circumstances, doesn't rely on the immediate answers we long for, but on the quiet assurance that God is with us, He's working for us, and He will be faithful to bring us through. I've come to see that waiting isn't just a necessary part of life, it's a sacred process. It's where we allow God to take the lead, where we lean into His presence and trust that His timing is perfect. And when the moment of breakthrough finally comes, it's not just the solution to our problems, it's the result of the work that God has been doing in us all along. And that work, that transformation, is more valuable than any answer or blessing we could receive. Because what God does in us during the waiting season is what equips us to handle the blessings He has in store for us. It's like preparing the soil before planting the seed. The soil needs to be rich, healthy, and ready. And only in the right time, when everything is aligned, will the seed begin to sprout and bear fruit. And that's how God works in our lives. He's preparing the soil of our hearts so that when the blessings come, we can receive them with gratitude, grace, and wisdom. So, if you're in a season of waiting right now, don't lose heart. Trust that God is doing something beautiful in you. The waiting is not in vain. It's the time when God is building your faith, your patience, and your ability to trust Him in ways you never thought possible. It's the process that will equip you for the future. And it's a sacred journey that one day will bring forth the fruit of all that God has been doing in you. The waiting will not last forever, but the growth it produces will remain long after. As I sit and think about all the seasons of waiting that have marked my journey, I realize that they have been more than just pauses in my life. They've been times of deep transformation. Seasons that, in the moment, felt like prolonged struggles, but in hindsight, were nothing short of divine preparation. I used to think of waiting as a necessary evil, a frustrating interlude before the real action happened. I didn't understand why I had to go through it. I wanted quick results. I wanted answers, breakthroughs, and changes right away. It felt like I was stuck in a place where nothing was happening, and no matter how much I prayed or hoped, things just weren't shifting. But now, after reflecting on the bigger picture, I see that waiting is not just a delay. It's a crucial part of the journey that God uses to shape, refine, and prepare us for what He has ahead. It's in these seasons that God is at work in ways we can't always see or understand at the time. It's easy to look at the external circumstances, things not changing, prayers seemingly unanswered, and feel defeated. But waiting is never wasted. It's the time when God works on our hearts, our character, and our ability to trust Him. And the beauty of it is that when we look back, we can see just how much we've grown in the process. God doesn't just answer our prayers with immediate results. He answers them through the slow, steady work of transformation that happens in the waiting. In those moments of uncertainty, God is refining us. He's teaching us patience, endurance, and trust. He's helping us release control, surrender our own timelines, and lean into His perfect plan for our lives. The waiting is not passive, it's active. It's where we are called to engage with God, to trust Him with the unknown, to choose faith over fear, and to believe that He is working even when we can't see it. It's a season of deepening our relationship with Him, not just when we get what we want, but when we learn to lean into Him even in the silence. I can think of many times when I felt frustrated with how long things were taking. I prayed for breakthrough, but nothing seemed to happen. I prayed for doors to open, but they stayed shut. I prayed for healing, but the pain lingered. I wanted to rush through the waiting and get to the good stuff. But now, I see that in those very moments of waiting, I was learning to trust God more deeply. I was learning that God isn't just in the big dramatic answers to prayer. He's in the quiet moments of stillness, teaching me to wait on Him, teaching me to believe that His timing is always perfect, even when I don't understand it. Psalm 120 paints a beautiful picture of this. The psalmist is in distress, facing betrayal, surrounded by deceit, and yet he chooses to call out to God. Even though his circumstances haven't changed, his heart shifts, because he knows that God hears him. That's the power of prayer, not in the immediate change of our situation, but in the transformation of our hearts. Prayer doesn't just change our circumstances, it changes us. And it's in the waiting that we learn to be transformed. It's when we learn to keep praying, to keep trusting, and to keep surrendering that God works in ways we can't fully grasp until later. I've seen this truth unfold in my own life over and over again. What I thought were wasted moments, times of unanswered prayers, closed doors, and silent heavens, were actually the most valuable times. They were the times when I was being stretched, refined, and prepared for the things that were coming next. And looking back now, I can see that without those waiting seasons, I wouldn't have been ready for the blessings that God eventually brought into my life. It's almost as if those seasons were God's way of strengthening me for what was ahead. He was building the endurance I needed to carry the blessings he had in store. So, if you're in a season of waiting, let me encourage you, don't rush it. Don't try to push through it. Don't get frustrated with the pace of things. Instead, lean into it. Surrender your need to control the outcome and trust that God is working, even in the silence. Know that while it might seem like nothing is happening, God is doing something deep in you. The waiting is preparing you for something incredible, something far greater than you can imagine. The blessings that are coming won't just be external, they'll be internal as well. You'll be more prepared, more equipped, and more spiritually ready to handle them. It's in the waiting that God builds the foundation for everything that's to come. And when the breakthrough comes, when the answers to prayer finally arrive, you'll see that it was worth the wait. Not just because of the outcome, but because of the person you became during the waiting. The waiting season is never wasted. It's the most powerful, transformative season of all. And it's what makes the blessings on the other side so much more meaningful and fulfilling.